Hello everybody. This is your student Facebook meteorologist Sean Bagden here. We're going to be talking about the severe weather threat that is expected for the lower Great Lakes region here, right around this area, Buffalo, Erie, Cleveland area, also maybe a bit here near the Rochester area, and up near Watertown is a conditional severe threat. We're going to start out with the upper levels of the atmosphere and then work our way down to the surface. So we're going to start up at the 700 millibar level. So this is a little bit above the height of Mount Washington here. So what we're seeing here, we're seeing this trough digging into the Great Lakes region. This is the one that was associated with the extremely severe weather with the derecho that developed in the Dakotas the other day. Could be looking at something pretty similar developing in this area starting in the afternoon on Sunday, tomorrow, especially down in the Pennsylvania area, and potential for some very strong supercellular storms up here if they're able to get rolling. We'll tell you why that's a conditional threat as we get rolling here. But as you can see, plenty of upper level winds to increase wind shear here in the afternoon. Was a 0Z on Monday. Plenty of shear, or plenty of wind in the upper levels for wind shear. We're looking at like 35 to 40 knots up here in upstate New York, and then down here in the lower Great Lakes region, we're seeing around 30, 35 knots of shear. These are storm enhanced values here at 700 millibars, so don't really admire those. But right around here you got 30 to 35 knots of shear, which is pretty marginal for the development and sustaining of thunderstorms, severe thunderstorms, but it certainly is enough. Definitely up here, but due to ridging aloft, this ridge that's been pumping in all that warm, moist air, we're going to have warm air aloft stuck up here and a capping inversion, so it is unlikely that will break, which means severe weather will not be as likely here. See, you got this warm air aloft. It is decreasing our CAPE values compared to what's going to be down south, but as you can see, supercells will be possible here as we have tornado soundings. Very nice loop topograph, but I really don't think it's going to be happening as we've got all this warm air stuck in the column here, decreasing our CAPE values. Look at that, 53 joules of SIN. Never a good thing when you're looking for strong thunderstorms. Going down here, though, where we have stronger wind shear, we'll throw up some low-level maps here. Well, actually, first, let's look at the humidity we're dealing with. Here's our dew point values. Actually, let's throw up surface winds with that, too. Surface winds are always a big thing when we're looking for storm modes here. So here's our low-level wind barbs and dew points. So what we're looking at is an upper-level flow coming out of the west to east direction, and a low-level flow coming out of the southwest to northeast direction, locally backed to the due south direction along the sea breeze boundaries here. As you can see, there's some southerlies mixing their way in along the coastline here, and this is where your focal points for tornadoes will be right as storms begin to initiate along that boundary, along this along the sea breeze boundary right here, where you tend to get enhanced low-level spin and increased humidity. You can see dews here in the mid to upper 70s, which is, with those high temperatures, you're going to be needing mid to upper 70s dews to increase your tornado threat so you don't get elevated thunderstorm activity, which is generally a non-player for tornadoes. But we do have high enough humidity values, dew point values here, and backed enough winds along the sea breeze boundary to introduce a tornado threat to the picture. This will be a little bit behind the line, but as you can see, we do have that southerly flow at the surface, and then boom, westerlies. That's about 90 degrees of critical angle there, and plenty of cape for ascent here. Definitely looking at potential for hail when it comes to this. We're gonna back it up actually one frame here and show you a really nice inverted V sounding, which can help increase your chance for severe wind gusts here. So this is right before the line starts to develop. We'll go right along the sea breeze boundary here. And there you go, look, you got this nice hodograph loop, and boom, there's your inverted V right near the surface here. And as rain falls through this drier air, it tends to evaporate, and as it evaporates, it cools the air and makes it very easy to sink. And when that air sinks, it creates a big gust of wind, which is what creates those amazing shelf clouds that you see, that rain-cooled air. And that's when you get your severe winds. So certainly a severe wind threat out of this. Marginal hail threat, as mid-level lapse rates are not impressive. You'd want to see these around 8 or higher. But that's okay, still plenty of cape. We're going to have plenty of rising motion here in the upper levels, and low enough LCLs to promote the threat for tornadoes with these looped hodographs. Could be a repeat of what happened the other day in Portland, New York with that tornado. And one other thing, we'll throw up the EHI here. Energy Helicity Index. This basically shows us the overlap of where the best shear and instability is for the production of severe thunderstorms. The brighter the red, the higher chance generally of severe thunderstorms. This does not include CAP. So you can have high EHI, Energy Helicity Index, in capped areas, such as up here where you have a little more ridging aloft, which will tend to inhibit thunderstorm activity. But down here you can see these deep purples right down to the south of this developing line of thunderstorms, which will be right around this area. And this pretty much shows us that it'll be free to move as far south as this plume goes, which is pretty much right before it runs into the Catskills and I believe it's the Poconos that run around right here. So once it hits the State College area, it's going to tend to weaken, but before that, we're going to have a pretty strong convective line. We'll take a sounding right in front of this, see what kind of environment it's forecast to run into, and boy oh boy, look at this. Inverted V sounding goes away, but low level spin and really strong winds aloft. That jet max really starts kicking in the afternoon there. Really starting to crank up our hodographs as it enters the fields there in Pennsylvania. Definitely could be seeing a tornado threat embedded within these lines of thunderstorms, as storm relative felicities are going to be in the 300 range, which is plenty enough, and shear values right in that range we look for supercell activity. So could get an embedded supercell within the line of thunderstorms. Also, nice little mid-level dry slot here that we always look for the development of supercells, because that kind of inhibits the amount of cloudiness that develops out in front of them, which could inhibit instability or the birth of instability here. One last thing here we're going to be looking at is the radar interpretation of this. See how correct I am, because I haven't really looked much at radar. I'm just kind of going off the fly here. But yeah, here you go. Here is your MCS that's going to be dropping south. Going to be forming right near Erie, and look at these supercellular structures you have embedded along this line here. certainly going to be interesting to watch once they get closer to the mountains here near the State College area, because the mountains can tend to increase low-level spin right before the storms interact with those mountains. So this will definitely be an interesting area to watch between Buffalo, Erie, Cleveland, and the State College area. Certainly in this area, would not be surprised to see a brief spin-up tornado just south of that Portland area and southeast of the Erie area, especially if these storms tend to remain a little more cellular, although I don't see that, as there's a lot more of a cap. So I'd expect this to be a lot more filled in and more of a bow than cellular like it shows here. Also, one other thing, this is right around the sunset hour, for those that wanted to know. And SPC has issued a slight risk for 2% chance of tornadoes and 15% wind chances, severe wind chances. I'd expect that we go to an enhanced risk for wind if these models continue with this trend of the inverted V soundings and more of a bowed structure here, just given what we were seeing yesterday. So have a good day, everybody, and we will talk to you later about this severe threat.